A destroyer based in San Diego was supposed to be carrying one of the most advanced weapons in the U.S. Navy's arsenal by now. It isn't. The plan to fit that ship with a ship-launched hypersonic missile system has hit a real delay, according to reporting from the San Diego Union Tribune. The Navy hasn't said when the work will actually be finished. RETENTIONCHECKPOINT 030 resolution Ts. Here's the real question this raises. Hypersonic weapons are supposed to be the Navy's answer to a specific problem. Missiles that fly so fast and maneuver so unpredictably that existing defenses struggle to stop them. So why is putting one on a warship taking longer than planned? We're going to walk through what this program is meant to do, what's publicly known about the holdup in San Diego, and what the Navy hasn't confirmed. Because in a story like this, the gap between confirmed and reported matters. I went through what's actually on the public record here, and one thing stood out right away. There's no new completion date. Not a delayed one, not a revised one. None. According to the San Diego Union Tribune's reporting, the destroyer in question was expected to get the Navy's hypersonic strike weapon under an original timeline that has now slipped. The report doesn't specify a new target date, and the Navy hasn't publicly released one either. That absence is itself part of the story. When a program misses its schedule and the service doesn't immediately offer a replacement date, it usually means the technical or logistical problems are still being worked out. Let's be precise about what a hypersonic missile actually is, since the term gets thrown around loosely. Officially, a weapon counts as hypersonic when it travels at Mach 5 or faster, 5 times the speed of sound, while also maneuvering during flight. That second part is what separates it from an ordinary ballistic missile. A traditional ballistic warhead follows a predictable arc after launch. A hypersonic glide vehicle can change course mid-flight, which makes it far harder for existing missile defense radars and interceptors to track and engage. For the Navy, the appeal is simple. A destroyer or submarine that can launch a weapon capable of striking a target at extreme speed and range from a mobile platform at sea changes the calculus for any adversary trying to defend against it. That's the goal. Getting it onto a ship has always been the hard part. Some background helps here. The Navy's program is publicly known as Conventional Prompt Strike, and it shares its core glide vehicle, the Common Hypersonic Glide Body, with the Army's land-based Dark Eagle system. Rather than each service building its own hypersonic warhead from scratch, the Pentagon built one glide body and let each branch design its own launcher around it. The Army mounts its version on a truck-based launcher. The Navy's plan has long been to field the same underlying weapon from Zumwalt-class destroyers, structurally modified with new missile tubes for this purpose, and later from Virginia-class submarines. None of that is specific to the San Diego story. It's the general framework the current delay sits inside. Here's what this tells us about where the U.S. stands in the broader hypersonic race right now. This isn't a program starting from zero. The Navy has spent years developing the underlying missile technology alongside the Army, which is fielding a land-based version of a similar system. The naval variant is meant to eventually go on both Zumwalt-class destroyers and Virginia-class submarines. What makes shipboard integration different from a land-based launcher is the sheer complexity of the platform it has to fit into. A destroyer isn't a static launch pad. It has its own power generation, cooling requirements, weight and stability limits, and an existing combat system that has to talk to the new weapon without breaking anything else on the ship. Retrofitting that kind of capability onto a hull that wasn't designed around it in the first place is a much harder engineering problem than building something new. Would you want to be the engineer signing off on live-fire testing for a weapon that has to share deck, space, power, and cooling with everything else keeping a warship combat ready? That kind of constraint turns a straightforward-sounding upgrade into a multi-year job. The usual assumption when a defense program slips its schedule is that it's a money problem or a contractor problem. Sometimes that's true, but with weapons integration, a lot of the delay tends to come from something less dramatic: testing. Hypersonic systems have a track record of test failures across multiple U.S. programs in recent years in the Army, Navy, and Air Force alike. When a test doesn't go as planned, the response isn't to rush the next attempt. It's to slow down, figure out exactly what failed, and fix it before trying again. That process, repeated across a genuinely new weapon category, is where a lot of these timelines quietly slip away. So here's a fair question to sit with. Is a delay like this a sign the program is in real trouble, Or is it just what careful testing of a brand new weapons category looks like from the outside? People who follow defense programs closely land on different sides of that, and it's worth deciding for yourself rather than taking either extreme at face value. Here's the part that might not satisfy anyone expecting a scandal. A delay, on its own, isn't evidence of a program failure. Defense acquisition has a long, well-documented history of schedules slipping on complex weapons systems, especially ones that integrate a new capability onto an existing platform rather than building one from the ground up. What would actually be notable is if the Navy stopped communicating about the program altogether, or if costs started climbing without any movement toward a working system. Neither of those has been reported here. What has been reported is a missed timeline and no new date, which is a real story, just a narrower one than Hypersonic program in crisis. So where does this actually stand right now? The confirmed facts are limited, and it's worth separating them cleanly. Confirmed. A San Diego-based destroyer was slated to get the Navy's hypersonic missile system under an original schedule. That schedule wasn't met, and the Navy hasn't announced a replacement date, per the San Diego Union-Tribune's reporting. Not confirmed, at least not publicly, the specific technical cause of the delay, whether it's the missile itself, the shipboard launch system, testing setbacks, funding, or some mix of those. The Navy hasn't laid out a detailed public explanation, and outside analysts filling in that gap are offering informed guesses, not confirmed facts. We're not going to pretend otherwise here. That distinction matters. In defense reporting, an analyst's educated guess about probable causes can get repeated online until it reads like an established fact. Nothing in the public record confirms a specific root cause here, and any video or article that tells you definitively why this program slipped is going further than the Navy itself has gone on the record. RETENTIONCHECKPOINT. Last 60s payoff. So what happens next? Realistically, watch for two things: whether the Navy issues a revised timeline in an upcoming budget or acquisitions update, and whether independent defense outlets report any details on the technical holdup as they become available. Until either of those happens, the honest answer is that this is a program running behind its own schedule, for reasons the service hasn't laid out in public. If you want to track this yourself instead of waiting for the next headline, the Navy's own program updates and budget documents are the most direct source, along with the outlets that cover naval acquisition closely and tend to get confirmation before anyone else. We'll leave links to where to look in the description. And if you're curious how this compares to how other services are handling their own hypersonic setbacks, that's a story with its own share of missed deadlines, worth a closer look on its own.